Hey guys, how is everyone's day? Hope you are doing great. And yeah, today we're going to be doing something like this. We're going to design our coin. Yeah, sculpt it using Blender 2.8. And I had created something like this, but I've kind of deleted the project file. Sorry, the time lapse or the recording of the process. So we're going to try it again this time as a live stream. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. I'll just I think this is a good image to use. And just bring in some images to use here for reference. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is that instead of doing the usual way of sculpting everything from scratch, because I want to make the sculpt or the coin in one video. So instead of just doing everything, we are going to use our height maps for this. So now the way height maps work, let me just show you here. If you have any questions, you just let me know. The way height maps work, I'm just going to show you in a second. If you have a surface here, they're like sculpt brushes. Okay, I think this is a lot of subdivisions. Just subdivide this a few times and add a multi-resolution surface. I'm just going to show you what we are going to be doing, and then we can go in and start doing it. Subdivide this a few times, and now if we go to the sculpt mode and start sculpting, you can see you can sculpt with these brushes that are there. But what we can also do is I will watch your videos from now on. Thank you, Ingenium Art. Thank you. Yeah, so when you're sculpting, you can use the brushes listed here, or you can create custom brushes from textures, using textures. So that's what we're going to do. So because if we wanted to sculpt these kind of details ourselves, it would take a lot of time. So we're just going to maybe cheat a bit, and to do that we're going to use textures, sculpting textures or sculpt brushes, height maps. And I have a few height maps, so you can just go under the texture tab and open a new and find any height map you want. So for example, something like this. And then now if we go to the, might need more resolution for sculpting here. Let me just turn to matcap here so that we can see better what we are sculpting. You can see I can sculpt in details using an anime texture like that. I just need a little bit of detail, extra detail here. Just subdivide this even further. And instead of using, if I go to the brush settings under texture, I can change from tiled to stencil so that I can see a trace of what I'm trying to brush to paint in. And now I can paint that in. I can paint that detail in like that. See how simple that is? You can switch to a different texture. Let's see this tiger here. can add that detail as well. So to move this around, you just use your left mouse button. If I turn off this mirror object, you can move your mid mouse button. You can hold down your left mouse button. No, actually your right. Sorry, right. To move this around, to drag this around. If you hold on Control and then hold your right mouse button, you can rotate. If you hold on Shift and right mouse button, you can scale this up and down by dragging. And I missed it. And you didn't miss anything. I'm just explaining the basics of what we're going to do here. I've just started the stream as well. So I'm going to, let me just start over with the actual coin design we're going to make. Let me find my references here. Let me just go to Google and find some image references. So coin. Let's do old coin. I think this is a good design for reference, so we will use that. So let me just drag that in. Yeah, just to have something. Did you go over how to create the alphas? No, no. And I'm not going to go over that because I didn't create the alphas myself. So you can just Google, I think, alpha maps, is it? Yeah, alpha maps, and you should get a few of them, a few brushes. And a good way to find these, you can also find them on Pinterest. You should find a lot of alpha maps. Some are paid, some are free, so you can find what you want and just import them. So let's start from scratch. So to create the coin, we're going to start by adding a circle. Go to edit mode, and instead of filling it using F, you can hit F3 and then search for the grid fill to fill in so that we have only quads of our mesh. Now we can extrude it so that it has some thickness, and then we can go in and add the multi-resolution modifier so that we can start sculpting. Make sure you set this to simple. We can start subdividing this a few times. 5 is good enough detail. So then we can go to sculpt mode and start sculpting. And so to bring in these textures, let me first go through the entire steps. I just go to the texture tab here and bring in the height maps. Again, height maps are just texture maps that lets Blender dictate what vertices have to be pushed up or what vertices have to be pushed down. So let's go to just add an image texture, navigate to your height maps. They basically look like this. They look like Z depth or depth maps if you have looked at them before. So I think you can also search for depth maps, and it should give you something similar. Yeah, this would also work. Let me just show you. Let me just get this here, and this doesn't look appropriate, so just ignore that. Let's find this here, just to show you that if you get an image like that, it would work really nicely. Great, I'm still at work, so I will be dipping in and out, but I have been excited to see you. Yeah, thank you, man. Great to hear. So you're working within this. Are you the essential staff? Good to know. Anyway, so let's find something. I don't know why they are. God. This is not good resolution here, but let's use that just to show you. So this is in my downloads, so I can just find that image, downloads, and this here. Now to be able to preview it in my viewport, hello Tad, how are you doing? Nice to see you. You just have to, by default, if you go to this settings tab, by default under texture, the setting is set to tiled. So if you start painting, you just paint a grid of that texture, but that's not what we want. We want to be able to see, to preview the texture here. So to preview that, you just have to change from tiled to stencil, so that you can see this plane, and the way you move it is where you paint, and the way you move it, you can use your right mouse to drag it around. Just hold down your right mouse and mouse button to move it around. Then you can use shift to scale it up and down by dragging your right button, mouse button, and if you want to rotate it, just hold down control and then right mouse button, drag your right mouse button and rotate it like that. Then you can paint that in. Okay, for some reason this is being painted in. So usually the way masks work, the way these alpha maps work is that white areas get pushed up and then black areas just are pushed down a bit. But we're getting the inverse of that, and I think the reason for that is that our normals are facing the wrong direction. Now you can see when I turn on face orientation here, you can see that our normals are facing the wrong direction. So we need to fix that by going into the mesh and then hold on shift in to recalculate the normals, so that our normals are facing the right direction or are facing outside the mesh. Now if I paint, you can see now we're getting the details. The details are getting painted outside. So, and how fine those details come out is going to depend on two things: the resolution of your image or your texture, and the resolution of your mesh. So if you want these details to be more polished or to be more crisp, you'd have to subdivide this even further. It's going to increase your computation power, that you'll get finer details. Also, you would also need to make sure that your texture image, your alpha map, is a high resolution image. So let me switch to something more high resolution. Let me just use this here. Now you can see you can easily paint in details quickly like that. And for this here, because you can see this is supposed to be something that is stylable, you can draw a line like this. So to do that, like what you see here, you would need to switch from stencil to tiled, and then under your stroke settings and your brush settings, you can change the stroke method from space to line to just draw a line. You can see how quickly and simple that makes things. If you tried sculpting this, it would take you quite some time, and it wouldn't even look that nice. And the way these alpha maps are made, they are made by modeling the surface itself directly from a mesh, and then the z depth of that mesh to create that alpha map. And so let's start sculpting the actual thing. So I'm just going to clear out this detail by just removing this and and let me bring back my multi-resolution, subdivide this again. 5 times is enough. Now let's start working on the on the coin. We'll go to sculpt mode. Now the thing I'm going to do is add these spots here, and those don't require me to have a texture map like this. You can do one, you can make your own in Photoshop as well if you want, but I'm just going to go and I'm going to remove this texture and start drawing in those points. What I'm also going to do to make things more easier, you're going to turn on the mirror. Let me reduce my brush. You can use your bracket keys to scale up, to increase your brush size or bring it down. So I want to add in those dots around the entire surface, and if you go under the stroke method, you can change from line to, actually no, you can change from line to dots, and there is this stroke stabilizer. You can use that to draw something similar. You can try to draw curves with it. It's very hard to get perfect curves from it, but yeah, when you drag, there is that lazy effect on the curve. Now you can also play around with the radius or factor, and I think we need to use so let me see. I want to increase the spacing between these so that I can just draw dots instead of I'm not seeing the set. Okay, so if you increase the spacing here, make sure you change this stroke method back to space and increase the spacing. Now this would allow you to start to draw dots, but I've increased the spacing too much, so I need to bring it back a little bit. You can see now we're getting some spacing between the different dots. I'm just also going to reduce the radius here, and now you can see I can easily draw dots like that. So that's what I want. Let me just close it just a bit, and I want to have these dots a bit sharper because now they look a bit smoother. So I can change the fall off here to a more constant value here, and I get something like that. But let's use custom here and just play with the values and create our own fall off. So that is a bit sharp, but not too sharp as the constant fall off we have there. So I want to also increase the spacing just a bit, maybe a bit more. It takes some bit of experimenting to get the shape. Reduce. And now I'm just going to choose back to go back to dots and just draw in the. Now let me go back to space. Just reduce the spacing and just also turn off stabilize stroke so that I can just draw those dots in. Spacing. It's not perfect. I'm starting to think maybe it's much easier to just draw the dots by hand instead of using this stabilizer, because it's a bit hard to control sometimes. I think that's a bit better. Can draw in the last two there. Something like that. Now let's start adding in some details. What I'm going to do here is I don't like this design here, but let me show you my design that I went for. I went with something with a cross in the middle here. That made it look better. But since I already done that, let's try a different design. So we can add in this detail here. So open that, change. Let's see what we can do here. Okay. I'm also going to turn off the y-axis for a second. Let me change the texture mapping to stencil so that I can see what I'm drawing. And I'm just going to place this around, rotate it using Control right mouse button drag. So I think I can have this. Let's make sure that I have this on the x-axis, repeated on the x-axis. If you want to mirror this, you just change the size offset here. Sorry, the size value, the y value here, -1, and that should mirror this on the y value. Now I can just start painting these in, but I need to change my brush setting again. To something, let's see, let's go back to the brush settings, stroke settings here. I'm going to change from you need to make sure that this spacing is turned off, and what else? I think that's it, so that we can paint in that detail directly. So I'm just going to start painting in that detail like that. And you can see it. And I think if we add here something else, that would be nice. So we can go back to the image settings. Do you use anchor strokes? Anchor strokes. I'm not sure what those are. Maybe. Do you mean the stabilize stroke here? What does anchor strokes do? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what anchor strokes do. Okay, my internet is kind of misbehaving. I'm not sure why. It's lagging a bit. but it seems to be stabilizing, so let's continue. And I think I've gone through the basics, so we can just continue. It lets you use the alpha shape size on the fly and stamp it basically. Okay, not sure how to use that though. I've never used that. But, let's add in more details here. So if I go to the texture, I can look for other details that we can add in here, and I think we can find something. Let's use this ego here, and if we place it somewhere in the middle here, so it's going to rotate this. Yes, I think that would be a nice area to add it. Now turn off the mirror for now, so we can start painting in that detail. Let's see. That's what we have. And remember, you can just, if you want to the detail to be even more fine, you can just increase the subdivision in your multi-resolution. Try it real quick. You may like it for this situation. I'm not at my PC, but I believe it is a stroke type. Sorry, much more skilled. Anchor, I don't know where that setting is. So if we go to the settings, let me see. Why is that setting? Because I don't think I've seen it before. Alpha, what was it? Alpha something, alpha what? Anchor strokes. Hello Vision TV series, how are you? Yeah, Jaya, I'm not seeing anchor strokes anywhere. I'm not seeing that option. So we can even go in and add more and more details in here. So let's go under textures, find another image. Yeah, let's try these scales here. And for those, what we can do is first create a mask. So I'm just going to scroll down and in these brushes and find the mask brush and create a mask, paint a mask where I want those scales to appear. Give me, my internet is not really. Skib human. Yeah, I've been using Blender for a while, maybe I don't know, 10 years. Yeah, I don't know, my internet is really failing me now, but I think we have got the basics out of the way, and let me just show you. So basically you just layer more and more details like that to get to do what I did in the, yeah, I'm saying that too. Let me just show you how you can use the mask tool. I think we'll continue this tutorial in the tomorrow and see if my internet will be better, but right now I don't think. It's not a big problem, but I don't know. Let me just show you how to use the mask tool here, and maybe from there we can work. We can continue the tutorial tomorrow maybe. But so to use the mask, you just use this tool here, and make sure the strength is really high. And just paint the mask. You can also go to the settings and make sure that you have hardness increased to draw less fainted strokes like that. So something like that. I don't know if there is a better way to make these strokes based on the height. Let me see if there is an option for that. Mask increase contrast, mask extract. Yeah, let's try lasso mask because that might be a better. So let's try that like that. So the shortcut is Shift Control Shift L, left mouse Control Shift. Okay, so this is a better way to draw a mask, and you can just select those areas like that to create the mask like that. And then after you draw the mask, you can, let's see, where is, you can bring in your texture. So I'm just going to select these scales here, and then make sure that for the texture mapping, Ismail, hey, how are you? Thanks. For the texture mapping, we're going to go for tiled, and we can start drawing. But we want this to be tiled, but we can only draw in the areas that are not painted. So we need to invert our mask. So invert mask. Now we can start painting, gain some scales like that. So that's a quick way to get in some details for you. Again, I'm just in this here, I'm just showcasing the tool. We're not really trying to do something crazy here. And that's how you get in those details. So, and that's how I manage. Let me just show you the final results for my version. Yeah, so that's how I manage to get the details you see in this version here and this here. So after you make all the details you want to add in, and for example, the ridges that you see here were added in by just drawing. Go back to sculpt mode. Just drawing in those details. After you utilize, you're done with the mask, you need to clear it so that you can start painting the areas you want to paint it. So just go under mask, clear mask. Now I can paint in those ridges. Actually, I don't want to use that texture. Let me just use something different. Actually, we don't even need to use a texture here. But let's try using something like this, because I just drew those textures in. I drew the ridges directly myself, but let's see if we can actually draw these in. Anyway, they don't look nice as I wanted, but so to draw those ridges, those outside ridges that you see on this here, I just drew them directly. Like that. And if you have the X and Y mirror turned on, that would also be very, very helpful. So you can just draw them directly. Like so. Also make sure that where you're painting, you're painting areas that you're facing. Otherwise, if you try to paint ridges here, the brush is painting depending on your view direction. This area is not, they are not going to be the same size as this here. Something like that. And what is left now is just to bake this into an object, into a normal map. And the way you do that, you just apply the multi-resolution, then duplicate this into a different object, then go to the object data, under remesh, make sure you are in voxel, hit voxel remesh, and you should this will produce a low polygon version of this here. Let's go to, it just produce a low polygon mesh of this version. And now just need to move this to the same position as the original version, have them on top of each other like that, and then bake the details of this object, of the high polygon model onto the low polygon model. I just need a material. And also one important thing you shouldn't forget is you need to UV unwrap the low polygon model. So I'm just going to add a few seams here for the low polygon. Actually, let me just add them from the bottom here. Just going to add this seam here. UV unwrap this, then bake the low polygon details to the low polygon, to the actually, you know what, that process is a bit tough, is a bit long, and needs a better explanation than that. And I have a few tutorials about baking materials or baking textures in Blender, so you can go to my YouTube channel and search. Let me just show you how you can search them very quickly. You can search for top channel or baking in Blender top channel one-on-one, and I should bring all the baking tutorials that I have there. You can see how to bake the ambient occlusion, the maintenance, every other thing, every other properties. But the most important one should be baking normal map, which I'm not seeing here. Yeah, this here, this is for bits, but you can find any other tutorial about baking normal maps. Maybe just to show you how to do that, because since we are here, I might as well just show you. Make sure you have you unwrap this. So let's go to this, and since I've only made added details on the top side, and then not the back side, what I'm going to do is mirror this on the bottom side. So there is no reason for me to have the bottom side UVs take up large space. So I'm just going to scale up the top side that we're going to bake, and then for the bottom side UVs, I can scale them down and just give them a very small space in the UV space, so that this takes up most of the space for the baking. Now I can select the height. Before I even do that, you need to add a texture that you want to bake your maps to. So you can have the resolution. You make sure you increase the resolution to whatever you want to have. Make sure it's high enough to contain the detail you want to use. So you select the high poly and then the low poly, and to make sure, the way you make sure that you have selected the right order, you need to make sure that you're seeing the texture that you want to bake to. So you can see this here. When I select the high poly, I'm not seeing the texture, but you need to select the low poly version last, because that's where you want to bake the textures, and you should also be seeing the materials you're going to be baking to. Now you can go to, let me change this to image editor and preview this. I'm just going to call this bake so that I can easily select it or identify it. So then you select, after I make selections and have the materials ready, you just go to your render settings. Make sure you change to cycles, because EV currently doesn't allow for baking, and what you want to do is also reduce the render samples here, because it doesn't matter, especially if you are rendering if you're rendering diffuse, normal maps, and roughness, the number of samples you have here don't affect the quality. It's only when you're baking when you're baking transformation, glossy, and what here, and maybe shadows and ambient occlusion. That's only anything that requires ray tracing will need more samples, but normal maps and roughness and diffuse don't require that. So, and we can turn on direct here, which requires the yeah, you can turn off direct, and I think indirect too. No, actually you need to have the indirect on, and to bake those details into a normal map, you need to turn on you need to be baking the normal map, and make sure you have selected to active, so that you bake the details of the selected to the active element, and the active element is our low polygon object, which you can tell by the orange, lighter orange color. So now we can start baking. Just hit bake, and you shouldn't get any errors here. If you get any errors, it's usually because you have selected the wrong you have selected it the inverse of what you should be selecting. You can see we have baked the details, but we are not capturing all the details we need. As you can tell from this greenish, the normal map doesn't look quite correct because we are not capturing all the details. Now to capture all the details, and to make sure that you're capturing all the details, looking at my internet, and it's a bit, it's going down quite a lot for some reason. It's going up and down a lot. Just waiting for it to stabilize so that I can continue. Anyway, so to bake all the details, you need to go to this option. Just expand this option and increase the ray distance here, maybe to something like 1, and then hit bake. Hello Lucio, how are you doing? And you can see now we are capturing more details. So if you're seeing any of that green stuff, if your normal map doesn't look fine, say if we bake again, just play with the ray distance here so that you're capturing more of those details. So if you're seeing this, just increase the ray distance and bake again, and that should bake the other details in like that. Then the other thing you want to bake is the cavity map, which also captures the height information of this mesh. And the way you do that is you would just we need to switch to cycles for this. Now let's select this material. Yeah, this time we need to create a new material and go into add an input geometry node. We need to preview the pointness, so we can add a convert color ramp, have the pointness connected to the factor of the color ramp. Let's preview that. Now you can start, you can see some of the details we're trying to capture. Now if you play with this value here, you can see those are some of the details we want to capture, and those will help us create a height mask for our mesh. Now we just have to feed this into the base color of the principal shader, and now we can bake the diffuse. Also, don't forget you need to have the same selection we had before. So select the high polygon mesh and then the low polygon mesh. Make sure you have this bake image selected and then hit bake. Also, to make sure that your baking doesn't take a lot of time, just reduce the render samples to 1 because that won't affect the quality of the bake. And also make sure you only are baking color, you're not baking indirect lighting, then hit bake. So then we just have to wait for it, and you can see this is the height map information, the information we wanted to bake. And the last thing you want to bake is the ambient occlusion. For that, it doesn't need a lot. You just again make sure you have the high polygon selected first and then the low poly selected as active, and then just go to ambient occlusion, switch the bake type to ambient occlusion, and make sure this time you increase the samples to something high, maybe something like 64, so that you can capture a nice ambient occlusion. And then you bake that. Make sure whenever you bake you save the images. That's something I forgot. And make sure you're not saving them over themselves, or you're not replacing whatever you're saving. After you do that, you will end up with a bunch of maps. Let me change this to UV editor. So you will end up with these maps like this. So this is the cavity map for this here. That's the cavity map I baked. Then I also have a normal map and the ambient occlusion map. That's how it looks, and that's it for the most part. Then you can use those to do whatever you want to create different masks. So for example, I use the ambient occlusion the ambient occlusion mask to make those creases, I don't know if they're called creases, a bit darker than the more exposed side of the coin. So in these areas, more exposed areas, it's I made it look like those areas had been eroded or something like that, and the corner areas of the mesh, I made them look a bit darker because they would have collected dust and things like that, and also not be exposed to erosion, to expose more metal. So, and the way you do that is that you just have your ambient occlusion map, which should be. Maybe let me just redo the entire thing. I'm just going to select this, remove this material, and just to show you how I set up everything. So I brought in the ambient occlusion. So texture, image, texture. I brought in the ambient occlusion. And you can see how it looks here. And basically, I would use that in conjunction with the color ramp to create a dust map. And you can also add a a math node with the operation of power. So just to make those areas that dust or be more pronounced, like that. Now I can use this as a mask for our dirt or whatever this black stuff is. So I can add a color mix RGB, use that as a factor, and I would make these areas, the less exposed areas, give them that bronze color. So I can even just sample that. Give that bronze color like that, and then the other areas make them a bit dark like that. So this is metal, so I can just give this a metal value and play around with the roughness just a bit. So this is just with the ambient occlusion map. Now let's bring in the normal map. So I'll just duplicate this and fetch the normal map like here. This contains most of the details. So then you'd get this and feed it into a normal map input, and then this would go directly into the normal input of the principal shader like this. You can see how much detail we have. So let me turn off these values here just to show you. So this is just with the principal, and if you haven't seen the base mesh, let me just show you. There's basically no detail here. If you look at the mesh itself, there isn't as much detail, but if we add in the normal map, you can see how it looks. We add in all that details we painted in. Now I can reduce. If you reduce this to 0, this is what you have, and this is what you have when you increase the normal map value. So bring this in, and usually this dust that collects is non-metallic, so you would want that to be non-metal in this area, in these surfaces as well. I think can also just reduce the saturation of this. And the way you would do that, we can use the ambient occlusion mask and feed it directly into the metalness. So now those dust areas are non-metallic, and yeah, and we can also use this for the roughness as well. So have this connected to the base color. this to the roughness. Thanks, Victor, sorry, for subscribing. And then now we have these two colors we can use to control the roughness for any of the two. Or we can use the top color to control the roughness of the dust area, and we can use color to control the roughness or reflectiveness of the metallic area or metallic part, like so. Then we also created this cavity map, which would look similar to something like this, and you can add a math node with the operation of power to make it a bit more pronounced, and you can extract all sorts of masks from this. So you see how the more exposed the parts are, the more lighter or more yellow those parts are. We can use this mask here, because it gives us those eroded parts, to add more color to these areas. So I can use this mask here. Now I can make these parts whiter, so let me just make them red so that you see where those areas are. Okay, it might be the inverse of this. Just need to play with the power value here, just to capture only those areas. Just those areas like that. And you can see where those areas are going to be, and we can give them a brighter color like that. Maybe change this to let's try add. Hello Gerardo Diaz, thanks for subscribing as well. So you can see how we are getting those more exposed areas. Now this is going to be our final base color, like that. So you can layer more and more details like that. And usually what you want to have is some scratches within on the coin, like what you see in the original version there. Now the way you can add those is if you have, say, a texture map, a scratch texture map. Let me find something. The textures. I have some scratches here, so that's what I'm going to show you. Yeah, so something like this. So you can see these scratches here, and you want to add them all area here. You can still use something like this ambient occlusion mask and subtract because you don't want a lot of scratches in these dark areas, because those are not really exposed. Those are not as exposed as other areas. So we can have a math node and our scratches. And let's play around with here with different settings here. Let's try subtract. Now this gives us, if you look closely, let me just add another power node here. You can see now we have those scratches mostly in more exposed areas. Can even just reduce the scale of those scratches. To be super detailed, to be something like that. You can see what we have, and then we can feed this directly into our roughness map. So you can see from this node here, see we have two colors that are affecting the roughness of our parts. One color is affecting the roughness of the dirt areas. We shouldn't have too much reflections, and another area is affecting the metallic parts of our mesh, and that's where we want to feed these scratches, because that's the most exposed parts of our mesh, and you can start to see the scratches in those areas. Now from that, we can also use that in conjunction with the detailed normal map we have. We can also mix those scratches. So these scratches here. So if we add a math node here, we can mix them with the original normal map. Not directly like that, because this is a normal map. So if we add a vector bump map, so we can convert these scratches, which are here, into a normal map like that. Then we can have this connected. We can have this connected to this, and then this connected to this. Now if we preview this, we would get a combination of the two, but this is too strong for now, so we need to reduce it just a bit. And it's still too strong, so we might need to add a car ramp to kind of clamp the values down a bit. And also, maybe we don't want it to be too reflective, so I add a math node here, so that it's not as reflective. Let's see the values we are having here, and maybe let's just use a car ramp here again to clamp the values a bit. which was just preview this. So we obviously need to spend a little bit more time, but that's the concept. You just have to layer more and more things on top of each other until you get something to similar to the material we have here. The setup I have here, which I spent a little bit more time on. And basically it's the same thing, just layering different things. As you can see, this is the scratches. Then this is the cavity map. This is the ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion mixed with our normal map. Then they all get mixed to have the final results here. Then coupled with some lighting effects, that's how you get to the results I have. And that is how we're going to end today's live stream. So thank you for watching, and yeah, thank you for your patience with the internet. But it had started to stabilize right now, but I'm getting a bit tired, and I think I've covered most of everything that I wanted to cover. So see you tomorrow, maybe, when I get something interesting to do. Don't forget to join